Today we're going to be talking about succession laws, the best succession laws, and my personal favourites. First, how do you change succession law? First we go to the government screen and then we click this little tree with a number next to it. And boom, we're at the succession law screen. Now, when it comes to succession law, there's really two criteria you're looking for. Number one, do you want the best possible ruler? And number two, do you want to play the marriage game to try and inherit and form personal unions? When it comes to the first of these, that being the best possible ruler, you have two options at the start. We have the favored son succession, which will ensure your highest stat son will always be your heir, as it scores them based on their admin, diplomatic, and military ability. You can also appoint an heir if you want to specifically select one yourself who isn't the best of them. But if you're not worried about maintaining your dynasty and are fine going through the female line, there is also the female version of this law, that being matrilineal non-exclusive. This works a lot like the favored son law, but can also have female rulers and loses the option of appointing rulers, and also comes with a hefty -5 legitimacy every time a new ruler ascends to the throne. But what if you don't really care about getting the best possible ruler? The obvious candidate here is the absolutely cognatic primogeniture law. Why? Because this law allows you to go through the female as well as male line for your eldest child. So hypothetically, you marry your eldest daughter to the king of another nation, and their eldest son, as long as the eldest child is a son, will inherit both thrones. The one problem with this law is that your eldest daughter will inherit. So as long as the eldest child of you and that other monarch is a boy, you will inherit both. But if it is a girl, you'll at least have claims on the throne of that other nation due to her being a relation of the ruler. Another problem with this law is you will lose your dynasty, and you'll likely switch a lot between different dynasties as you try to gain the throne as many countries as possible. But if that's not something that bothers you, then there's no problem, right? Now, those are my thoughts on the succession laws of the starting few. But as the ages go by, we gain access to a few others. If we jump over to the laws screen and check the estate laws, and specifically the rights of the nobility, you'll see here there is two other succession laws we can gain access to via the nobility electorate. They are, number one, the elective succession. This succession law allows every single noble in your country to run for a succession, and the winner is based on their military diplomacy and administrative ability, as well as being related to the current ruler being a factor. This succession law does discriminate against females, as you can see, as well as discriminated cultures. But if you want to have the best possible ruler and you're not really worried about them being part of your starting dynasty, this is an easy recommend. Problem with this one is it gives -10 legitimacy every time a ruler ascends to the throne. So let's compare it to my favorite succession law, Dynastic Elective. This is essentially the best kind of succession while keeping your starting dynasty, or whichever dynasty you have when you implement the law. Only men can run in this succession law, but they are purely based on their score, meaning you can easily get very distant members of your dynasty with the prodigy trait that have very high stats finding their way onto your throne. If you're happy having a very large family with lots of members and lots of successors, this is an easy recommend as a succession law, because all of those various branches will produce various members, and the very best of them will be elected to be your ruler. As you can see, this succession law only ranks them based on their stats, nothing else. So even being the child of the current ruler, being a distant relation has no effect. It's purely a meritocracy here. Only the best will get to the throne. The main downside, like with the other one, is the -10 legitimacy, as well as the fact that females can't inherit. But if you marry various male members of your family to other royal families, there's chances that they will inherit thrones and could then be elected to be a successor via this succession law. Problem is, of course, the succession law doesn't have the appoint heir button. If it did, this would be literally perfect, as you could literally just appoint any member of your family, no matter where they are, into being your ruler. But oh well. So, to sum everything up, if you want to inherit lots of thrones, absolutely Cognatic is probably the best way to go. If you want the best possible rulers from amongst your sons, favored son succession law is probably the best way to go. If you've reached a point where you can research rights of the nobility, consider giving them the noble electorate, so that you can have access to the dynastic elective succession and ensure the best possible member of your dynasty amongst your male members finds their way to the throne. If you don't really care about your dynasty being in power, then instead go for the elective succession and simply elect the best possible person to be your ruler, taking account the minus women receive of 100, which can be counteracted by being the child of the current ruler. There are also 2 other succession laws that you can only gain access to through reforms that you may want to consider. They are the admiralty election and the general staff election. As the name suggests, they give massive bonuses to admirals in the case of the admiral succession, or generals in the case of the general staff succession. In this way, you can essentially choose your next ruler, as being an admiral, in the case of the admiral succession, gives a very large boost to being the successor, while being not an admiral gives a very large minus. In this way, this succession law can basically be exploited to appoint your successor without even really needing to think about it. You just select whoever you want to be your successor and make them an admiral, and they should win every election. Same for the general staff election. The problem with this succession law is, of course, that only men can succeed the throne under this succession law. And if for whatever reason they can't become an admiral, maybe because you don't have a navy, then you will not be able to appoint your successor. In that case, the general staff succession law would be better. Though looking at it, I can't tell if it's bugged or if this is simply a UI bug, because if you hover over it, it requires an admiral just as the admiral succession does, which is not how it's supposed to work. The problem with these 2 succession laws is you'll need to wait for them to become available. And I believe they only become available in the Age of Discovery. I'm actually just going to test whether the military regime law is bugged or whether it's just a UI bug. It's definitely a UI bug. Even though it says admiral, it does rank your generals as successor. As you can see here, all of these people that are ranked are generals or have very high stats. So this, when it says admiral and admiral trait, this is simply a bug. It's a UI bug. It is considering generals and not admirals. As you can see, I have an admiral here. He would be the main successor if this succession law was, if this succession law was basing itself off admirals, but he's not. Instead, it's selecting all of these generals to be far ahead of him. In fact, I don't think he even shows up in the succession law. So there you have it. These are all of the succession laws, outside of unique ones that certain nations and cultures get, that are available for monarchies. What's your favorite succession law? Or what's a succession law you want to be in the game but isn't? For me, I'd like some version of seniority where the eldest member of the family can inherit. But either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.